Welcome to another reading of Mehera-Meher. We're at the top of page 278 of volume 2. And here we have Bing beginning the reading. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to press OK that it's being recorded. Baba was out of town for a week from 10 November, giving promised darshan in Nagpur to a multitudinous throng of people. He left Nagpur by train, and during the return journey, he lay down on the seat and covered himself with a white sheet to do his inner work. The owner of Prem Basera was an Orthodox Muslim man who had 3 wives. He was a fine individual, and his mother was especially drawn to Baba. When his wives had first been introduced to Baba, as they were in Purta,
Oh, you missed a sentence,
oh,
Bing. She would take Baba's hand and kiss it.
I don't see that. I don't see it in my book either. So I guess
Oh,
that
it
is-
must,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
this, what we have on the screen is the latest version. So,
right, okay.
uh,
She would,
It's not much change, but so you can add it in, Eugene.
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So, but it's an important sentence. She would take
Yeah.
Baba's
she would
hand
take
and kiss
Baba's
it.
hand and kiss it and speak with him in Persian. When the owner's wives had first been introduced to Baba, as they were in Purta, they covered their faces, which every Orthodox Muslim woman does in the presence of a man outside her family. Baba had told them, I am God. I am both man and woman. Hearing this, the man's mother removed her veil, telling her daughters-in-law to do likewise. The old woman became devoted to Baba, who invited her to Mehrabad for Mehra's upcoming birthday celebrations.
Wow.
There's a lovely photo of the Humayun's tomb in Delhi from the 3rd of February of 1939. I guess Mani MSI collection. And then the next page, Baba covering himself to do his universal work, Mandalay Hall, Marazad, around circa 1949, before the veranda door was built. Then the next page, Arnavas and Nariman Dadachanji at the Ahmednagar Fire Temple, 21 December 1944. Khurshid Talati, courtesy of Arnavas and Beloved Archives.
It looks like their wedding day, huh?
It does.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And it comes through very nicely on that PDF, the quality of the photo. 71, an eventful week. I'm going to read in the book, and please let me know if there's any changes, because I'm curious as to what the additions would be. Is that okay?
Perfect.
Yeah, because that's also interesting to see what evolved. And I bought this recently anyway. On 28 November 1944, Meher Baba returned to Marazad with Mera, Mani, Meru, and Naja. Kitty and Walu were sent to Mehrabad. I was so happy to be included with those going to Marazad, Meru recalled, since at that time, Meru was new and nothing was certain. Sometimes Kitty, Ranu, Margaret, or Walu were called to stay at Marazad, but Irene never was. Other women living at Mehrabad included Khorshid, Katie, Mansari, Sunamasi, Baidul's family, Kaikobad's family, and Vishnu's mother, Kaku. Arnavas and Nariman Dadi Chanji had been engaged for 2 years now, and they were to be married soon. They had come to Aurangabad, where they discussed the wedding with Baba. Arnavas, 26, brought a pink sari with silver embroidery for Mehera. When Mehera saw it, she remarked, "What am I going to do with it? Where am I going to wear such a gorgeous sari?" Baba said, "Wear it on your birthday, then give it back to Arnavas." Mehera's birthday was to be publicly celebrated at Mehrabad that year, and by 18 December, preparations were already in progress. Pendu and Naja's father, Masaji, had gone to Pune that day to bring large cooking utensils and vessels in a truck. But when he returned, he felt tired and lay down on his bed. The next day after lunch, he again went to his room to take a nap. But when Jango came to ask Masaji about purchases from the bazaar, Masaji was dead. Baba came from Marazad to supervise the burial of his uncle, which was done in a grave near the railway tracks. Baba touched the body before the coffin lid was nailed shut, and then the coffin itself. He helped the mandale lower it into the ground and threw earth over it, which the mandale did as well. Baba also placed flowers on the grave. I have a question, if I may. So when they says the grave is near the tracks, is it on the other side of the tracks with the group of men, or is it some degree separate from that? Anyway.
I would venture to guess it's on this, with the other men, Yeah.
Anyway, something to take a look for.
You could check with someone else, but I would just think
Yeah.
that, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Because it might have been one of the first graves in that grouping. In any case, that evening, Nariman and Arnavas, along with 86 people in their wedding party, arrived from Bombay and had Baba's darshan. On Thursday, 21 December, they were married at Agyari Fire Temple in Ahmednagar. After the ceremony, Arnavas came to Marazad, where Mehera applied a red tika dot to her forehead. "I felt so fortunate," Arnavas remembered. The other women were waiting to embrace her as she was given wedding presents also. One was a photograph of Baba, Mehera, and the two calves in a silver frame. This was an unusual gift in that Baba had never given Mehera's photo to anyone. Even more unusual, he did not tell Arnavas to keep the photo hidden away and not show it to anyone else. Baba, perhaps for the first time, also distributed a Baba locket to each of the women who had come. Side note, for the first time in years, Masaji had ordered a new coat made to wear on Mehera's birthday. Jungle Master had been sent to town to get buttons for it and was coming back to report on his shopping when he found Masaji dead. Page 282. On 27 December, Baba and the Marazad women came to Mehrabad, where they stayed on the hill for 5 days. On the 23rd, the dedication of a memorial tower to Meher Baba's departed disciples was held. Mehera and the other women did not attend the ceremony itself, but the guests who had been at the wedding and other lovers from Ahmednagar did. After another 2-foot grave was dug near Masaji's, Chanji's bedding roll was placed in it, and Baba strewed flowers over it. The memorial tower was to be raised on the foundation of these two graves. In a message read out by Adi Sr., Baba said, "In this world, feverishly occupied with vanishing things of the moment, the tower would be a reservoir of inspiration and power for posterities." Because of the life of sacrifice based on love of those disciples whose names were inscribed on it. Is that the tower that was recently built near the tracks? But
I think so.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
that's the tower.
The next day, 24 December, at Vilu Villas, Srosa's home, Audie Jr.'s wife, Gulu, died in childbirth at the age of 30 after giving birth to a son, Dara. Baba was present, and moments before Gulu died, he put his hand on her head in blessing. Despite the tragedy, the following day, Mara's birthday was celebrated. Mara and the other women walked down the hill in the evening for a Qawwali program, but stayed secluded behind a curtain in back of Baba, who was seated on a gadi. Baba had instructed all not to speak about Gulu's death on the hill. Baba himself told Mara and Mani, Gulu's sister-in-law, privately that Gulu's condition was very bad. He informed them of her death only after the program. According to Baba's instruction, Gomai attended Gulu's funeral and came to Meherabad afterward for the Qawwali program. During the singing, Baba told Mansari to call the Muslim women who owned Prem Bisara, who had come with her daughter and daughter-in-law. The woman had become slightly ill and was eating pan. When Mansari told her that Baba wanted her, she replied that she was just coming and came at a leisurely pace instead of at once, as Baba would have wished. As part of the celebration, Baba also took the women to see a film at an outdoor cinema in Arangan. The Muslim woman had never been to a movie, and seeing men on the screen, they did not remove their veils at first. But when Baba told them that the men were just shadows and not real, they did so. Thus,
Oh, maybe it's a good time to read the sidebar here,
oh yeah,
Bing. Yeah.
okay. Adi read out the names of the departed ones, which Baba had drawn up a few days before. Mara's maternal grandmother, Shireen, was on the list. Shireen Bai Sharab Irani, grandmother Shireen, had met both Babajan and Upasni Maharaj and had taken Meher Baba's Darsan. She was the only one in her family other than Dalit Mai and Franny Masai who was not against Baba.
Hmm.
Thus ended an eventful week in which the observance of a wedding, 2 deaths, a birth, 2 funerals, and a birthday were juxtaposed. It was an emotionally wrenching time for the Mandalay, but unimportant except for being experienced in Baba's company, since these were all events of the vanishing moment. During that time, Baba was in a mood to give a discourse and told the women, I am the greatest avatar of this cycle. I'm a combination of all 5 perfect masters. I also possess the qualities of all previous avatars. I am mischievous like Krishna. And he went on to list the attributes of other avataric incarnations. Would anyone else like to read, or you want me to continue?
Yeah, we could change now. Rosalie, ready? Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm sorry
Thanks, Bing.
they didn't put the other comments about us.
Yeah, I was wishing that
Yeah.
too.
Then about Mara, he stated, Mara and I are one. What I feel, many times Mara feels the same. Mara is like my Radha, my beloved. She is my very breath, without which I cannot live. Well, my translation is she's female avatar. I think that will be said in this Advent. He added, I love you all, but she is my beloved. Arnavas was deeply affected by Baba's words. Baba made us understand that Mehera was special, but at the same time, he kept her as an ordinary human being. What I feel today is that at that time, during that period, Baba kept Mehera only for himself, and her whole focus was only on Baba. Therefore, what Baba had said about her must have actually happened. Mehera must have felt at that time what Baba wanted her to feel, what he was feeling. Baba explained his connection with Mehera by stating, she is my Mahamaya. We all have Maya, but ours is different. Baba is God, and his creation is his beloved, as he has created it. Baba's whole creation is of his own making. He loves that creation. Mehera represents his Maya, his creation, his beloved. People many times misunderstand about their connection. Mehera is so pure. Her purity is unblemished. Baba kept her pure. Because of her purity, there is so much childlikeness in her. She is like a child. Well, really a beautiful child, I could say. Only if one is innocent like a child can one be pure. The purity always manifests in childlikeness. Therefore, she is so different from everyone. She is intelligent, but Baba has kept her very childlike. Arnavas went on to recall what Mehera was in those days. Mehera was so different. At that time, she was kept only for Baba. No contact with outside visitors and limited contact with those staying in the ashram. She was always alone with those instructed to be with her. She never mingled with everyone. She would be in her room. She came out when Baba sat with us all and sat by his side. After Baba left, she again went back in her room. You can't imagine how quiet she was at that time. Hardly any words came out of her. That phase was different. Later, I felt Mehera's role changing in the sense that Baba just allowed her to be absolutely ordinary and childlike. Everything changed after the new life, and Mehera also changed. When Baba went into the new life, he told the other women that they should mix with men, cook for them. There would be no purdah. Mehera was pushed more to be with people after the new life. She didn't talk to men, but she did become more social.
Yeah, so the on-screen version is slightly different. Um, she should mix with men, cook for them. There would be no purda. Mara was pushed more to be with people after the new life, to mix with outsiders, outside families, women only, not men. When they went into the new life, she didn't talk to men, but she did become more social. She started talking with women, which was very unusual, as she was always so quiet. Oh, continue, Rosalie, if you don't mind.
Now, before the new life, Baba had prepared her. How? By showing her movies. We saw a lot of movies in Ahmednagar in the 40s. Books were read out. Then slowly she was allowed to see the pictures in the books. Then she was allowed to read herself. Gradually, Baba started to relax the rules he had been so particular about. Before this, no one had been allowed even to mention any man's name. If they were reading something, they'd have to put a woman's name in, I guess. Or to talk about any subject concerning the outside world in front of Mehera. Baba started gradually pushing Mehera into the world to play the role she was to play in later years. It took time. Having returned to Meherazad on 17th December, 27th December, Baba and the women stayed there during January. For 3 weeks, Baba worked in seclusion with the Mast Ali Shah. On the 31st, Baba and the women moved to Goher's father's house in Ahmednagar, while minor repairs were done at Meherazad. Rana was again called to stay with Mehera, Mani, Nehru, Naja, and Walu. From 2nd February 1945, Baba was gone for 4 days contacting Must. When he returned, he issued another circular about the month-long meeting plan for May, in which he said that intervention of my universal mind at this juncture is not appropriate, and that because of the problems of accommodating so many people in wartime, again the meeting would not be held. All of the signatories were asked to fast on May 1st, however. In the outer world of war, for a time, it looked as if the German counteroffensive in Europe might be successful. But the day before Christmas, the turning point came when the defenders held onto their positions until they were rescued by General Patton's army. And in the east, the Russians moved forward in their greatest offensive of the war. The Yalta Conference was held with Stalin, Churchill, and Roosevelt meeting to discuss post-war Europe. And on 19th February, the invasion of Iwo Jima began. It would consume 5 long weeks of cave to cave fighting and kamikaze attacks on a tiny island of volcanic ash. But it would bring the American Navy within a few hundred miles of the Japanese mainland. On 21st February, Baba went to Hyderabad with some of the men for 4 days of must work, staying in the Castle Rock Hotel. Don, serving in the army in nearby Secunderabad, had been instructed to look for suitable bungalows for Baba and the Mandali for a stay in Hyderabad of 6 months. But Pendu was not happy with his selection. Instead, Pendu found another bungalow in the Jubilee Hills area that had a small garden and a swimming pool on the grounds. It was still under construction, however, and had not yet been occupied by the owners. Nevertheless, Baba approved of it, and a lease agreement was signed. Meanwhile, another house in Secunderabad was to be rented for 3 weeks, while the first one was readied. On 9 March, Baba, the women, and Typhoon left Ahmednagar by train. Arriving in Hyderabad the following day, traveling with Baba were Mehera, Mani, Meru, Naja, Kitty, Rano, Margaret, and Walu. 2 of the servants, Rakhma and Lakshi, were also taken, while the rest of the women remained at Meherabad. Baba immediately became involved in must work, leaving daily for contacts in the area. Baba, in fact, contacted more musts in Hyderabad than in any other city, almost 70 in all. Sometimes he was gone for days at a time. The end of the war was coming, and the partition of India would soon follow. And along with Kashmir and the Punjab, Hyderabad will be one of the areas most affected by troubles. The sidebar. This was her second trip to Hyderabad. Mehera and the other women had stayed here for a week at the beginning of the Blue Bus tours 6 years before. I wanted to say something here because the Baba kept her so separate from men, and also she was never alone. Even if she had to relieve herself in the bathroom, there had to be someone stationed outside the door. So, and that went on, I believe that went on after Baba dropped his body, because any order that he hadn't rescinded, she continued faithfully. Since Baba was away so much of the time, and their meals were coming from the Castle Rock Hotel, where the Mandali were staying, Mehera asked whether she could read poetry with Margaret. Margaret explained, I had in my bedding roll a copy of the Oxford Book of Verse, version 1935-36, a very good collection. I don't know why I had brought it with me from England when I had only 1 suitcase and very few clothes. Before leaving, I slipped it in my bedding roll. We got a dictionary from somewhere and used it to look up words Mehera didn't know. Mehera and I both read the poems. We went through different poems. We learned some by heart, as you don't really get the rhythm of poetry unless you learn it by heart. That went on for some time. Mehera fondly remembered those times when Baba went for must work. We women had spare time in the afternoons. Margaret knew I loved poetry. She had a poetry book of Shelley and Keats. We often went and sat under a shady tree. Margaret read very beautifully. She had a beautiful, expressive way of reading. Sometimes she discussed or explained the poem. She also told me a bit about the poet's life. We spent half an hour together, at times more than an hour. We had a very good time. Margaret continued. When the subject of reading came up, Baba wouldn't let Mehera herself read because she would read a man's name. She might read stories about things he didn't want to awaken in her. Mehera had books and magazines that Delia had sent me. Short, innocent romance stories, tips on how to comb your hair, beauty tips. Baba said Mehera could read those. Baba himself gave her something else to read, a book about Indian saints. There is a funny story about it. Mehera sent for me one day and said, "You're not going to believe me." I said to myself, "Margaret, you better be careful. You're going to accept Mehera somehow." "What is it?" I asked. Mehera told me the story of a cow that had a human child who grew up to be a great saint. "I know you're not going to believe it," Mehera smiled with a look as if challenging me. I was going to say I did believe her, as I wasn't supposed to upset Mehera. I was going to lie. Then she said, "Baba said it's true." I said, "Well, Mehera, what have I to say if Baba said it's true?" I was saved. Mehera wanted to believe it. She was very simple, sweet, and innocent. Baba would say anything to please her. Kitty had to hold herself back at times not to say something that Mehera disagreed with. She was not to argue with Mehera, to hold her tongue, as Baba had instructed us to humor Mehera and not upset her. Narina was apt to hurt people's feelings, to jump on them. Baba once told her, "If you ever hurt Mehera, it will be you who goes." Wow. It would have been very easy for Narina, with her sharp social tongue, to do something or say something which her temperament might have made her do. Wow. In Hyderabad, Kitty, Rano, Margaret, and Naja shared one bedroom, and Mehera, Mani, and Meru were in a room on the other side. Every night, a rat scampered back and forth, pestering them. Naja was a light sleeper. Once she heard a noise and turned on her torch, which is a flashlight, to investigate. The rat saw the light and ran away. But Margaret woke up. "Why are you shining that light on our faces?" she demanded angrily. In broken English, Naja tried to explain, "I'm torching." "Torching?" Margaret quipped. "You're not torching, you're torturing us." The next morning, she and Naja were still arguing about it at breakfast, and Baba was amused by the incident. But rats were not the only pests that bothered them. One afternoon, they saw a snake sliding through the living room window. Another followed. They were only too happy to move out of this house and into the recently built bungalow at Jubilee Hills on Easter Sunday, 1st April. They made a small cake, and Moni decorated Easter eggs to celebrate. Mehera held them on her lap as she drove to the new house. Also on 1st of April, a world away, Allied Marine and Army divisions invaded Okinawa, threshold to the East China Sea. It was the most daring move in the Pacific campaign thus far, barely 350 miles from Japan. But during the following week, they encountered formidable Japanese defenses and suffered terrible losses.
Thank you, Rosalie. Eva, could you unmute and continue?
Of course, sure. An eventful week. Rusty Pop's bungalow on Mignagar, February 1945.
Hmm.
Another great picture, Ajmer, February 1939, Mani MSI collection.
And that was a blue bus tour, that picture. One of the places, Ajmer, where Baba contacted a lot of must.
72, Jubilee Hills. Gradual incline led up to the slopes of Jubilee Hills, situated just outside Hyderabad city, where gypsies had camped 100 years earlier. Now, it was an area where wealthy Muslims lived in lavish bungalows with lovely gardens. One such Muslim was building a secluded house there, which Mayor Baba and the women Mandali were to occupy from 1 April 1945. In a walled compound, thick with trees, steps led uphill to the front veranda, but the back of the house was level with a landscaped garden. A flagstone path went to a kitchen far away, and on one side of the compound was a guest house that had 2 rooms and a veranda surrounded by creepers. The house had a swimming pool built so that the Muslim women of the family in Purda could swim without being observed from the road or garden. The medium-sized pool had a gray-blue tiled bottom with white stars and a fountain at its head. A large pond in the back garden, in which the children could play, was decorated with a miniature lighthouse, rocks, and a few sailing boats. A story was told by Margaret that while the house was still under construction, a yogi came and sat opposite it. He goes into meditation and then pronounces that the greatest spiritual personality in the world is coming here. The owner says, "How's that? This is my house," little knowing that soon Mayor Baba is coming to occupy it. Mehera noted how fortunate that Baba used this house before anyone else. Although the owner had wanted to complete the house before they moved in, Baba was eager to occupy it and would not wait. Don and Rano were sent to persuade him. Only the lampshades are left, the owner told them in a beseeching tone. We don't want them, they replied. But what about the locks? At least let me have locks installed before you moved in. Presumably, the locks were fitted, but some of the light fixtures were still only naked bulbs when Baba and the women Mandali arrived. The wash basins had no faucets, and work remained to be done on the windows. But there was a thick red Persian carpet in the hallway, and the house was partially furnished, though they had to supply their own beds. An amusing exchange involving the beds happened 2 days before they were to move in. They had acquired iron cots and a few plain, unpolished beds and tables from some Europeans who were selling their furniture. Baba told Kitty, Rano, and Don to shift the furniture into the house, and the owner was quite surprised to see Westerners moving such ordinary furniture into his posh residence. Kitty and Reno chose the front room for Baba's bedroom. Down the hallway, next to it, was a bedroom for Naja and Meru, which was small but big enough for them. Mehera and Mani shared a room with a large bay window and a fountain opposite their door, but they still needed a third bedroom for Kitty, Rano, and Margaret. A dining room with a large crystal chandelier had an aquarium built into the wall between the dining and drawing rooms, with glass on 4 sides. In one corner was a small sink where one could wash. The garden was just outside the window, with the swimming pool beyond. They decided that this room would be suitable for their bedroom, but just as they started hauling in their beds, the landlord arrived, and the sidebar, the two servants, Rakma and Lakshi, stayed with Walu in another room. Madam, this is the dining room, he informed Rano. Yes, yes, we know, she said, feeling embarrassed, but we want to use it as a bedroom. But it is the dining room, the man protested. As the women pushed the dining table to one side, Rano explained, there are so many of us, and we need the space. The poor man was confused and must have wondered what sort of people were coming to stay in his house. Wherever we went, Mehera observed, we seemed strange to outsiders. Later, they put the large dining table and chairs on the spacious back veranda so that they could have a view of the garden while they ate, and here spent much of their time. The 2 Cotwell girls, Hilla and Naju, were in boarding school in nearby Secunderabad and were permitted to visit on weekends and holidays. Once, Hilla was hospitalized with smallpox. The young teenager was naturally concerned that her face would be scarred from the illness. But when Baba visited her, he passed his hands over her face and assured her she would be all right. She recovered without a mark on her face. A short while after the women moved into the Jubilee Hills bungalow, Baba said, at Meherabad, there are so many. Katie, Irene, and the others. We have a swimming pool and a guest house. Should we send for them? They could come 4 at a time. Then they too can swim. All thought it was a wonderful idea. Katie, Khorshed, Sunamasi, and one other, perhaps, came first for 10 days and occupied the detached 2-room guest house. When they returned to Meherabad, another group, which included Sultan Mansari and the Dartur family, took their place. Everyone had a turn staying in Hyderabad, except for Irene, who was not well and did not feel up to the journey. Other visitors included the Jaswalas, Nirgiz Kotwal, Pilamai, Sila, Dala, Sarwar, and Nagu and Jangu. Katie was the most excited about the swimming pool. Baba told them that they could swim from 9 to 11 a.m., but not before 9 or after 11. And they must have their morning tea not later than 11. They were permitted to swim again in the afternoon from 3:30 to 5:30. Katie could not wait. After breakfast, she changed into her swimsuit, stuffed her ears full of cotton, put on a tight swimming cap at exactly 9, jumped in. She did not want to get her hair wet and was afraid of getting an ear infection. So she tied an extra cloth around her head, like a large turban. Mehera teased her, and everyone laughed at her peculiar appearance. I feel suffocated if I put cotton in my ears, Mehera said. I didn't like to go swimming in the morning when the water was cold. Baba came by 11 anyway, and usually went out for must work in the afternoons. Before, Mehera hated cold water. She always entered the pool gingerly. Oh, I meant because Mehera hated cold water. She always entered the pool gingerly. First one toe, then a leg, then up to her waist before going underwater. Margaret said to just plunge in, but I never did. Once I got in, though, I didn't want to come out, and I swam for a few hours. Now that I knew how to swim, I enjoyed it. Whenever Mehera was in the water, Margaret was on lifeguard duty to keep watch and give pointers to her and the others. They never had an inflatable mattress or played games in the water, such as with a ball. They simply swam back and forth. But Margaret did teach them additional strokes, including how to dive. Mehera was a bit hesitant. I still don't know my strokes properly, she told Margaret. Why do you want to teach me diving? But she did learn. After an hour or an hour and a half, Margaret said, "Time to come out, girls. You might catch a cold." Mehera usually said, "No, I'm not ready yet," and continued swimming for another half hour. The swimming pool had showers and changing rooms, but Mehera wrapped a towel around herself and went back to her own room to shower after swimming. In the afternoon, when everyone had finished swimming, naps were allowed, so they rested while Margaret swam alone. About Mehera, Margaret observed, Mehera had grace. Baba had me teach her exercises, just keeping fit exercises, not particularly dancing exercises. Baba told her to do them every day, and she still does. Her body was very well shaped. When she learned to swim, her mind was on it. Like that. Margaret snapped her fingers. Mehera had her mind on Baba, but when he told her to put it on something else, she did. You get people in teaching them whose mind is not fully concentrated on what they are supposed to be learning. Hers was.
Thanks, Eva. Is Fred reading?
No, he's not.
Okay, thanks. Meher, you want to unmute and read? Meher Karan? Oh, he might not be at his. Oh, he
Text
says
message.
no. Okay. Um, Otherwise, there was no reason that a woman who had been shut up as she had for years, should so athletically and beautifully learn to swim as she did. Her strokes were clean and strong, and she could dive and swim underwater. She learned the breaststroke, side stroke, and overarm. Margaret was pleased with her progress, and at last, Mani and Katie's wish in Karwar was fulfilled. Because of them, Mehera too had learned to swim. Baba said that he would come to see how they swam, and when he did, everyone showed him what they had learned. Margaret counted how many laps they did, and Mehera demonstrated the side stroke, breaststroke, swam underwater, and even dove into the deep end for him. Baba was impressed. While Margaret supervised, Mehera and the others each took one pupil from the Mehrabad group to teach. Meru Dastur was a pleasant, happy girl who spoke softly and had a keen sense of humor. Meru Irani taught her and the other two Dastur sisters, and despite being so large, they swam well. Soltun too learned how to float on her back. Mehera tried to teach Mansari, reasoning that since Mansari was so small and light, she would learn quickly. But Mansari's neck was so stiff that she could not hold her head up out of the water. Her legs too sank. And despite Mehera's urgings all afternoon, every day, Mansari was not a successful pupil. On the last day before she went to Mehrabad, Mehera recalled, someone suggested I teach her the side stroke. I tried to get her to do it at least. I tried to get her to do at least this stroke, but it was too late. Finally, I quit. It was a waste of time. On 10 April, Baba left to contact musts. He was gone for a day and then left again for further contacts. Mehera was swimming when Baba drove up to the house in the small convertible touring car he was using at the time. He had been gone for several days must hunting, but he did not get out of the car. He sent someone inside with the message. Tell Mehera and Mani that Baba has come and is waiting outside near the gate. Mehera had only been in the pool for 5 minutes, but she leapt out, rushed to the shower, and dressed quickly. In half an hour, the women emerged from the house. Baba took Mehera, Mani, and Meru to see a film, Frenchman's Creek, starring Joan Fontaine and Basil Rathbone. This 1944 swashbuckling romance is the story of an English aristocrat and a French pirate. Just the sort of movie Mehera enjoyed. After many days of not seeing Baba, said Mehera, he was sweet to come and take us to a film. It was a very happy time, going to the pictures with Baba. Another day, Baba showed them where he had stayed on a previous visit, the Castle Rock Hotel, which had rooms perched on a rocky granite hillside. The hotel was near the Jubilee Hills bungalow on the opposite side of the road. The Mondali had been staying at the Castle Rock, but moved into the Secunderabad bungalow once the women had moved to Jubilee Hills. So here we are at the top of page 293, where we'll continue next week.
I have one unrelated note